The Minotaur. Myth or reality? The Labyrinth, ancient clues and the forgotten story of a real creature. Imagine standing before the ruins of an ancient labyrinth, built long ago by a legendary architect. Inside, it is said that a creature lived, half man, half bull. The Minotaur. Is this story really just a myth? What if there's real proof that this mythical creature actually existed? Imagine walking through the dark passageways of an ancient labyrinth. Suddenly, you hear heavy footsteps, a deep growl, and standing before you is a creature, half man, half bull, the Minotaur. What if this creature wasn't just a legend? What if he really existed? Join us on a fascinating journey through mythology, history, and science to find out if the Minotaur is more than just a made-up story. In this video, we'll explore the origins of this legend, examine ancient writings, scientific discoveries, and mysterious findings. Join us on a journey that blurs the lines between myth and reality. The story of the Minotaur is one of the most famous myths from ancient times. It tells of King Minos, ruler of Crete, who received a magnificent white bull from Poseidon. When Minos refused to sacrifice the animal as promised, he was punished by the gods. Pasiphae the queen was cursed to mate with the bull, and the Minotaur was born. This creature's prison was the labyrinth, a huge twisting and turning structure created by Daedalus, the famous architect. But this labyrinth isn't just a story, there's evidence that it might have actually existed. On the island of Crete, you'll find the archaeological site of Knossos, one of the most impressive ruins of the Minoan civilization. Archaeologists like Sir Arthur Evans, who led the excavations in the early 20th century, discovered a huge complex with a complicated network of hallways and rooms that looks a lot like a labyrinth. The structure of Knossos, with its endless hallways and seemingly illogical layout, might have been the inspiration for the legend of the labyrinth. Some historians believe that the labyrinth wasn't just a prison for the Minotaur, but also a symbol of the Minoans' political and cultural power. Herodotus, in his Histories, wrote not only about strange hybrid creatures, but also about a massive labyrinth in Egypt that was similar to the Cretan labyrinth. This labyrinth, built by Pharaoh Amenemhet III, was so big and complex that ancient writers described it as one of the most amazing structures. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, also mentions labyrinths and talks about creatures that were half animal and half human. These similarities between the writings of antiquity and the story of the Minotaur are not a coincidence. They might point to a common truth. Creatures like the Minotaur aren't only found in Greek myths. In Egypt, we find the Sphinx, a creature with a human head and a lion's body, which is also connected to labyrinths. Mesopotamian cultures worshipped the Lamassu, mixed creatures that acted as protectors. In India, there are myths about Narasimha, a half-god with a lion's head and a human body who is shown in temple carvings. The similarities in these myths suggest that these mixed creatures weren't just made up, but were deeply rooted in the imagination and possibly the reality of these cultures. In the Bible, specifically Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4, we learn about the Nephilim, gigantic beings, born from the union of the sons of God and the daughters of men. These beings were not only physically impressive, but often also hybrid creatures, combining human and animal traits. The Great Flood, which according to the Bible cleansed the earth, was meant to wipe out these beings. But the Bible hints that not all Nephilim were killed. What if the Minotaur was a remnant of this prehistoric era? Cryptozoology studies creatures that officially don't exist, but people keep seeing them. Reports of creatures that look like the Minotaur come from all over the world. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes tell of a beast, half human, half animal. Even in Europe, especially in remote parts of Greece, there are old stories about bull-headed creatures living deep in caves. These stories might be leftovers of long-forgotten knowledge. The ancient astronaut theory suggests that the gods of ancient times were extraterrestrial visitors who conducted genetic experiments. There are numerous accounts of hybrid creatures in myths that fit this pattern perfectly. What if the Minotaur wasn't the result of a divine curse, but an experiment by beings with superior technology? Some ancient depictions of hybrid creatures actually resemble modern concepts of genetic manipulation. Modern science has proven that chimeras, creatures made from different species, are possible. Genetic experiments show that combining DNA from different species is technically doable. The question is, did ancient civilizations have this knowledge? Or did they have access to advanced technology that was lost? Perhaps the myths about the Minotaur and other mixed creatures are memories of past scientific achievements. The Minotaur's labyrinth is more than just a prison. It could have been a symbol of the Minoans' power, a demonstration of their technological superiority. At the same time, there are clues that labyrinths in ancient times had ritual significance, as transitional spaces between the world of humans and that of the gods, or as places of initiation. The fascination with the labyrinth persists to this day, and perhaps this is a clue that it is deeply rooted in our collective memory. The story of the Minotaur combines elements of mythology, history, science, and religion. The clues are numerous. Ancient accounts, archaeological discoveries, and even modern science show that hybrid creatures like the Minotaur might have been more than just mythical beings. Are you as fascinated as we are by the possibility that the Minotaur was real? Do you want to learn more about the mysteries of the past, cryptozoology, ancient astronauts, and ancient myths? Then subscribe now to The Mighty Brain. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's uncover the secrets of history together. Share this video with friends who are just as curious as you are, because the truth is waiting, ready to discover it, ready to dive into a world of myth and mystery. The legend leads us into the depths of an endless labyrinth, full of terror and secrets. A story of gods, heroes, and a creature both hated and feared. The Minotaur, a name that still inspires awe and unease to this day. And now, we finally begin the story of the legendary and mysterious Minotaur. The wind howled across the golden hills of Crete, where the gods often played their games with mortals. In the middle of this magnificent island stood the splendid palace of Knossos, the heart of the Crete kingdom. King Minos ruled there, a man both blessed and cursed by the gods. But do you know what terrible fate would darken this glorious reign? Now hear the story of the Minotaur, that monster born to embody the gods' punishment. It began when Minos wanted to make Poseidon, the god of the seas, his ally. Poseidon answered his prayer and gave him a shining white bull, an animal of such divine beauty that it overshadowed all other creatures. The bull, however, was not a gift for Minos' treasury. It was a sacrifice that Poseidon demanded. But Minos, intoxicated by his power and greedy for the bull, dared to deceive the gods. Instead of the white bull, he sacrificed an ordinary animal. Do you think Minos thought Poseidon wouldn't notice? But Poseidon sees everything. The punishment came swiftly and cruelly. The goddess Aphrodite, at Poseidon's command, whispered an unimaginable desire into the heart of Queen Pasiphae, Minos' wife. Pasiphae was filled with a burning passion for the divine bull. Pasiphae was consumed by a burning passion for the divine bull. In despair, she turned to the ingenious craftsman Daedalus, who helped her build a wooden cow with which she could trick the bull. What emerged was a creature cursed by gods, men, and beasts alike: the Minotaur. Imagine the monster as it came into the world. A head, like a wild bull, with massive horns that could pierce even the strongest man. The body was human-like, muscular and huge, but the soul was tormented, a prisoner of its nature. As the monster grew, it became more and more wild and untamable. Minos, wanting to hide his shame from the world, ordered Daedalus to build a labyrinth, an endless maze beneath the palace of Knossos, a place from which there was no escape. Deep in the darkness of this labyrinth, Minos imprisoned the Minotaur, his own son. But the monster's fate was only the beginning of a bloody story. King Minos used the beast as a tool of his revenge when Athens caused the death of his son, Androgeus. Every 9 years he demanded 7 young men and 7 young women from Athens to be offered as sacrifices to the Minotaur. The victims were sent into the labyrinth where the monster lurked. You can imagine the cries of the lost echoing through the stone walls as the darkness of the labyrinth swallowed their souls. And then, one day, something happened that would change the legend of the Minotaur forever. Theseus, the prince of Athens, a hero whose courage and boldness were already praised in every corner of Greece, volunteered to face the monster. But do you think courage alone could defeat a monster like the Minotaur? No. Theseus knew he needed the help of gods and men. Ariadne, Minos' daughter, fell in love with the brave Theseus. She gave him a thread, a simple but powerful tool, to find his way back from the labyrinth. Imagine Theseus holding the thread tightly in his hand as he ventured into the dark depths of the labyrinth. Each step he took down brought him closer to the monster. The labyrinth was a living thing that seemed to swallow him whole, with endless corridors and dead silence, broken by a single, menacing sound: the thundering breath of the Minotaur. And then he stood before it. The two rivals, the hero and the monster. The fight wasn't a quick victory. It was a brutal duel that made the walls of the labyrinth tremble. Theseus was quick and clever, but the Minotaur was strong and wild, driven by its primal rage. But finally, through skill and tireless bravery, Theseus thrust his sword deep into the monster's chest. The Minotaur, the child of gods and sin, collapsed. Its roar echoed through the labyrinth like a final curse before falling silent. Theseus returned a hero, Ariadne's thread in hand, and the Minotaur's blood on his sword. But the legend of the Minotaur lives on, in the stories we tell, in the shadows we fear. You were brave enough to hear this story. But now that you know the horrors of the labyrinth, ask yourself, would you dare to venture into the darkness as Theseus did?